country roads take me home.
Hi guys, so today I wanted to highlight 5 things you probably missed while watching the making of Fallout 76 video by Noclip. If you haven't watched the documentary, I really recommend that you do. The video is roughly 40 minutes long and gives some really in-depth information about how the game came about and how the finished product will ultimately play. I must admit I did have my concerns about Fallout 76, but the documentary certainly cleared up the majority of them. The link to this is in the description. Anyway, let's move on to the first thing you may have missed during the documentary. Number 5, so starting off with not a particularly interesting one, but one I think is worth mentioning. During this section of gameplay, you can see in the top left of the player's HUD that they are over encumbered. This confirming that Carryweight will be making a return, something we probably already guessed, but something you may have missed. Also, with this game likely to be heavily based on crafting and set in a giant map, keeping an eye on your Carryweight will be quite important. Number 4. So number 4 is an item from Fallout New Vegas that will be making a return, and that is the Binoculars. If you weren't listening close enough, Nate Perkypile, yes that is his name, the lead artist at BGS, mentioned
like watchtowers and stuff, so then you're like, that's where I am, and pull out the binoculars and look around.
Obviously, as this game is multiplayer and slightly more survival based, having a pair of binoculars to scope out areas for other players is going to be a tool that could save your life on numerous occasions. Number 3, radio stations. So this was shown on screen for, I don't know, about half a second, but if you pause the video you can see 2 new radio stations that we will be encountering during the game. Now for me, the music in Fallout really sets the tone. Apart from when I make videos, I always have the radio on. I love all the 1930s and 1950s music. So radio stations are Peacetime Radio and Appalachia Radio. So I had a quick search for Peacetime Radio on the Fallout Wiki, and it just basically says it's a radio station in Fallout 76. However, Appalachia is a region in West Virginia, and obviously if it has a radio station, it's likely we'll be able to go there. After doing some research, it sounds like Appalachia is going to be really interesting and a really interesting place to visit. Listen to this. Appalachia is a cultural region in the eastern United States that stretches from the southern tier of New York to northern Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia. Since its recognition as a distinctive region in the late 19th century, Appalachia has been source of enduring myths and distortions regarding the isolation, temperament, and behavior of its inhabitants. Early 20th century writers often engaged in yellow journalism, focused on sensationalistic aspects of the region's culture, such as moonshining and clan feuding, and often portrayed the region's inhabitants as uneducated and prone to impulsive acts of violence. What's really interesting about this is the apparent isolation of the inhabitants and the myths that surround the area. I think this could be a section of the map we could see perhaps a community of people who had no idea the bombs fell or anything like that. However, without any NPCs in the game, I don't know how that would be possible, and reading terminals and notes about the people who live there may get boring after a while. On the other hand, this area may contain some very spooky creatures. So number 2 is weather types. Again, as with the radio stations, this wasn't on screen for very long and is very hard to see without stopping the video. However, one of the gameplay clips showed the user in the console using some kind of background application, and it showed a list of some or maybe all of the weather types we can expect to encounter during the game. Some on the list are repeats, so I'm just going to read the most notable ones out. So we have clear valley fog, rain, clear toxic, foggy, mounting top removal ash fire cool, not quite sure what that is, clear, misty, misty rainy, ash storm, misty toxic, rad storm, post nuke blast, and clear no fog. So obviously a lot of these weathers are ones we've seen in Fallout 4. It's nice to see rad storms return, as I really like that mechanic, but the most interesting ones are the ash storm, post nuke, and the mounting top removal ash fire cool. I think the mounting top one could be an after effect for the ash storm or some other command, but the ash storm sounds interesting. Could an ash storm be caused when you use one of the nukes to blow up an area? I'm not sure, but the only other suggestion is a volcano, which may sound silly, but I found on a website that apparently Virginia has a long history of eruptions and volcanic activity. Some of the oldest rocks in Virginia at the core of the Blue Ridge were the molten roots of the Greenville Mountains. It does say Virginia, not West Virginia, but there is only a 4-hour drive between them, so maybe a volcano is possible? I don't know. So the post-nuke blast seems pretty self-explanatory, and I think during Bethesda's E3 conference they showed us this weather type. And then the only other one is the toxic weather types, which sound quite familiar to rad storms, but maybe they're more dangerous. And finally, number 1. Now, some of you might not find this one as great as I think it is, but weapon degradation is back in the game. This is a feature I really missed from Fallout 3 and New Vegas. I'm not sure why they took it out, but it has made a return, and also food items will now rot and decay. Basically, the weapon degradation system worked as you would expect. As you use your weapon, eventually you will damage it or completely break it, and either need to repair it with some spare parts, additional weapons, or alternatively give it to a trader to fix for you. It has been mentioned that other players will be able to trade with one another, so this could mean if you have a character with like awesome repair skill, you will be able to offer your services and make some caps potentially. Obviously this is speculation, but it would be an awesome way to earn money in game. Anyway guys, this has been 5 things you may have missed in the making of Fallout 76 documentary. I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to subscribe and check out the documentary if you haven't already. But anyway, I will see you in the next one. Okay, thanks guys. Bye. Bye.
In Vault 76, our future begins.